And just like that, we are live. What's going on, everyone? Hello, hello. I already see the comments rolling in. How's everybody doing today? We have a full house. We are Brady bunching it. By the way, I know I'm talking. You may be confused because Rob Osell and I are basically twins. And so, just in case, I'm the one over here in the top left corner. Uh, we are excited for today. I'm excited for all this. Look at the crew. I agree. Uh, where's everybody coming in from? We've got quite a few people already tuning in right away. So I'm kind of excited about that part. Where's everybody popping in from today? Stack team. Yes, today, obviously, if you're one of the earlier ones that are popping in today, you got the invite. You RSVP'd. You did what you were supposed to do to hang out with us. And we're so happy to spend the day with you. We got Portland, Oregon in the house. I see that. Mr. Dennis Ivy himself. Thanks for hanging out with us. Chris Wicks, Atlanta, Georgia. New Orleans, Gainesville. Hello, Irving, Texas. We got everybody in the house today. Today, I'm so happy that we're able to do this event today with y'all. We do a lot of this, to be honest. We do a lot of lunch and learns, workshops, education. Dev education in general is something that This.Labs as a whole is passionate about. And we were kind of doing a workshop that we normally do, and we thought about why don't we do something for the community as a whole, so that way we can try and upskill developers in the way that they need to, get them access to the information that we all need, and kind of make sure that your companies and you yourself are being very marketable for the industry right now and staying ahead of the curve. And so today you're going to get a lot of valuable information. We have 3 talks in particular that our guest speakers that are with us today are going to be giving. I would also say on top of that, and I'll stop sharing for just a moment, we have 3 talks that we're going to be having from Mr. Hannes Rudolph. We have Andrea Griffiths with us from GitHub, Hannes with Rucode, and of course YK Dojo, aka Coding Dojo, aka YK the Great. I don't know about the last one, but YK in general from SourceGraph. And we're obviously going to be sharing a lot of information about their tools in particular that I think everyone here should be familiar with. By the end of this, we also have some hands-on interviewing and demos, and a lot of information for you to walk away with, making sure that you had true value for your time. My biggest goal for you is to make sure that by the end of this, at the very least, you have a better understanding of what it is that you should be familiar with in this industry right now. And I'll share one last thing for us. If you do not know who we are as of right now, you should be very familiar with us. We are This.Labs. This.Labs is a tech consultancy, and you've probably known us from many of our very successful endeavors, but also really successful conference talks that we give. We're a custom software agency. If you need something built, we're probably the team that you're going to want to get on the phone with. And we'd love to have you in any way, shape, or form, whether it's us coming to your organization for workshops or to implement something that you want to scale to the highest level. And you can kind of see here on our website, you can go to this.co to find out all of this firsthand. But of course, we work with some of the household names that you all know and love, and we love to implement things at the highest level. So give us a call if we can help you out in any way, shape, or form. With that being said, I'm going to now break up this Brady Bunch for a little bit. And now you know who will be here today. So make sure you're ready to hang out with us. If you haven't already, please share this stream out. We are going to be doing something very, very different. And so one thing that I would say to you in the chat, we are going to be doing a bunch of giveaways today. We have several giveaways in particular. One is we are going to be giving away some Yeti mugs, which I think is going to be huge, right? And so what I would love for you to do is we are going to be using a hashtag. If you want to share this on Twitter, on LinkedIn, wherever it is that you want to share it on, and if you use the hashtag this.ai, we are going to be going through that, and whatever insightful posts that we see people share, whatever interesting ideas that we see people share today during the next 2 hours, we're going to be picking at random, giving everybody an opportunity. But obviously, we're definitely going to be looking for some of the most insightful ones. And whatever we see really, really interesting come out of this during the next 2 hours, these are going to be people that we select. We're going to be doing one extra giveaway on top of this. Like I said previously, we do workshops. One workshop in particular that we have coming up at the end of August, it's been a very, very highly requested one. It's a very long workshop, but it's one that cost $1,000, give or take a seat, because of how much value is generally in there. We're going to be giving one of those seats away to one of y'all to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to kind of attend this thing. It's very hands-on, it's a small group, but very, very, very valuable for companies, organizations, or developers that are trying to scale up, especially at the enterprise level. So make sure you're tweeting that out using the hashtag. I'll drop the hashtag in the chat, hashtag this.ai, and we will be following that for the next 2 hours. So make sure, whether you're watching this on LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever it is that you want to share this on, we'll be checking it out for the next couple hours, and we'll be picking people at random. And so, with that being said, a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, be respectful of everyone here. Answer questions, share values. Don't demean someone for having a misconception about an idea or not necessarily knowing something as valuable as somebody else. We don't really, I'm not a big fan of that. I would never try to do that. And the community that we have as a whole with this thought, and I mean, honestly, the community that I've tried to build myself is always around respecting and educating others. So let's make sure we maintain that decorum for today, and we'll make sure that we do the same for you. So with that being said, and we're kind of a couple minutes ahead of time, I'm going to be bringing Tracy back up. Tracy, how are we?
Good. I've been tweeting, or not tweeting. I'm responding to the YouTube. I'm actually just saying, share what you're learning on here to your socials with the hashtag this.ai and get a chance to win 1 of 10 Yeti mugs. And the best one wins the workshop ticket, which is happening. You can actually go to ai.this.co/workshops to see the actual workshop that'll be happening. So pretty stoked about that. It's a full day workshop, and it's trying to get everybody up to speed on agentic AI coding tools. So thanks for having me, Danny.
Absolutely. I love this. Okay, so number one, I kind of gave a brief introduction, but I would love for you to kind of share right now, as you are the CEO for this, what is This.Labs?
Yes. Well, like you've told everybody already, we are a modern software consultancy that work with so many of the companies that you already know and love. But lately, we've been really focusing on helping engineering teams maximize AI developer tooling and workflows to unlock the 3 to 5x productivity gains that you should be seeing when you're using agentic AI coding tools, which is again why I'm so excited that we have 3 folks here from 3 amazing teams talking about it. We've been using AI to ship legacy migrations in record time, optimize code quality through intelligent CI/CD, and just automate all of the repetitive engineering and PM tasks that nobody likes to do.
Perfect. And so from here, we obviously today will revolve around one big theme: AI tooling and AI enablement. For those that may not necessarily be familiar, or maybe they understand it, but they don't necessarily know the term associated with it, what does AI enablement mean at this thought?
AI enablement means just like really helping organizations become truly ready to scale AI, not just hand out GitHub Copilot or Cursor or Root Code licenses like candy, right? The biggest barriers to AI also we found aren't just technical, they're also cultural. So our focus is really helping companies figure out both sides of the equation, technical and non-technical. Are your teams aligned? And then also, do you have the right architecture to integrate AI effectively?
Well, I mean, obviously we know AI is the talk of the town. A lot of people that were maybe very quiet about AI last year are some of the most vocal people about it right now. It's kind of taken hold of social media, companies, I mean, you name it. Why is it such a focus right now?
I totally agree with you, Danny. I mean, AI, I feel like last year was kind of like, okay, people are dipping their toes in, people are paying attention, people are, in the past 6 months, I mean, it is insane to see what has happened in 2025. AI is just no longer optional. It's just reshaping how software is built, how customers are supported, how teams collaborate, right? And if companies and developers aren't proactively enabling their people and systems for it, right, they're already falling behind. And that's why I'm so glad everybody is joining us for this stream today because, one of our sort of core missions at This Dot is to make the dev world a better place. And so by doing this, by educating developers, that is the only thing we can hope for, I suppose.
100%. what are some easy wins developers can achieve right now?
Gosh, there's so many things you can do to be successful today, right? And I'm sure a lot of y'all are probably like using this for little bits and pieces and everything, but gosh, AI can just help you immediately with PR reviews, documentation, ticketing, release notes, test writing, upskilling as well, understanding code bases. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. So I'm really excited what the guys are going to be sharing here today.
Well, let's be real about this, right? Like, what kind of real impact have you seen from AI enablement work you've done with obviously with many of our clients?
Yeah, so I don't know if people are familiar with, gosh, I don't remember when that Airbnb article came out, but there was a Airbnb article that came out that was talking about how a migration was set to have to take multiple years, right? And they finished it in less than 6 weeks. And everybody sort of took to that, right? But it's actually so cool to actually see that in real life. So we're finishing a migration right now from a legacy .NET system to a modern JavaScript stack, Next and Vercel, in less than 6 months with 1.5 developers. That project originally was scoped for 3 years. So to be able to take a project that was going to take 3 years and do it in less than 6 months with, again, just 1.5 developers, that's amazing. Another team, we've been working alongside their developers to adopt AI tooling and teaching them how to utilize them effectively, right? You really don't want to be able to, and that's why this lunch and learn that we're doing right here is so important. You're going to be able to learn how to truly utilize these AI coding agents. But they've seen 45% productivity boost in just the first month as a result. So that's not like a hypothetical future that we're hoping for. That's impact today. And our goal working with that team right now is to get them to the 3 to 5x productivity that we believe is possible in the next year.
Well, I love it. Let's see how today rolls out. I see a lot of comments rolling in, like even this one that I just highlighted right now. My company is currently looking to invest in AI tools. So I'll be interested to hear about the potential use cases I can bring up to the org. Hopefully not hopefully, I'm pretty confident they will. The speakers will definitely do justice to this today and hopefully expose you to things that you may not necessarily have known was available. And so thank you so much, Tracy, for all this. And we'll be moving on. All right, y'all. We have a lot going on today. Number one, if you are happy to be here, by the way, we're almost at 350 people across all the platforms we're streaming on. Thank you so much for hanging out. Seriously, you could be anywhere in the world. You decide to hang out with us. Definitely means a lot to us. So we're going to be progressing now on to our very first speaker, Hannes. I'm going to bring Hannes up.
Hey there.
Hannes, you want to give your intro for everybody so that way people know who you are?
Sure. About? My name is Hannes Rudolph. I'm the community manager at RuCode. RuCode.
Your camera.
I've disappeared again. Okay. A technical difficulty. Can you hear me still?
We can definitely hear you.
Okay. Well, then I do not know why my camera ceased to work.
You want to refresh the page and come back?
Sure. Give me 1 second here.
All right. Well, Hannes figures that out. So covering a couple things, we have the 3 tools that we're covering today: RuCode, GitHub Copilot, and SourceGraph's AMP. But we also have a conversation with our CTO. Hannes, you're back, but your camera's blurry. Something else is going on. Yeah, let's go do that first. Let's go to, perfect. I will bring up Andrea while we figure out Hannes's camera situation. Andrea, hello. Oh, can't hear you. Oh,
hi. I feel Hannes's pain. That was me yesterday, or the day before yesterday, and it's just like, oh, why? Thanks. But hey, Danny, thanks for the invite. Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Why don't you give an introduction for yourself so people know who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, so I'm Andrea Griffith. I'm a senior developer advocate at GitHub, where I get to have the privilege of working on showing you how to use our tools to their biggest potential. So it's quite a job, honestly.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, Copilot is one of the things, or GitHub Copilot is one of the things that is almost synonymous with AI tooling. But
yes,
I learned some very interesting things about Copilot at the AI Engineer Conference recently in San Francisco, where we were at this dot. And we learned a lot. A lot of new things came out. So people probably don't know what new things y'all have in the box. So hopefully we can kind of cover some of that today.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. If you don't mind sharing my screen, that'll be awesome. Great. Okay, so thanks again, Danny, for the invitation, and Tracy. So happy to be here. For today's topic, I really want to focus on agents because we have moved from code assistance, code generation into the world of agentic development or context-aware development, or basically, let's get somebody else, in this case, an agent, to do the boring work for you. GitHub Copilot has evolved into now being your newest team member, right? It's no longer just a peer programmer. It's no longer a pair programmer, but a peer programmer now. And this evolution, if you were there at the beginning when we first launched GitHub Copilot, is coming fast, right? In the past 3 years, there's been incredible breakthroughs in not only the technology, but the models and the way that we leverage those models with GitHub Copilot. There's an amazing benchmark on the SWE, and the standard is we jump from 25 to 70% in a year. What that actually means is for SWE, for folks who wondering what that is a benchmark that measures the way that any AI technology actually works in real world issues. So not just contextually, like the agent can potentially do this, but how it's actually evaluating code, how it's navigating through code bases, how it's understanding bug reports. And back in 2023, the very best, the most expensive AI model could only get right, or to a degree of solution, I guess, 1 out of 4 issues. By the end of 2024, now it's up to like 70%. And this year is gonna lead into being even beyond that. So it's not just incremental progress. That means that the agents are moving into where they're like an engineer. They are understanding the code bases, they're reasoning across multiple files, and most importantly, they're fixing issues end to end, which is why I'm so excited to be here and share with you the GitHub Copilot coding agent. The latest evolution in the GitHub Copilot, because we're really just getting started. I think some of the most compelling proof I can share with you about GitHub Copilot Coding Agent is down to our own dog fooding. It used to be called Project Padawan, and the reality is that it's now using itself to build itself. That sounds redundant, but that's the case. The GitHub Copilot Coding Agent is the number 5 contributor to its own code base. But it's not just being used internally at GitHub for this. In the past months, there's been over 1,000 PRs that have been merged. This is all code that's being generated autonomously by the Copilot coding agent. And not just across the specific feature, but across everywhere in the company. I have an example of our billing platform that actually had a pretty interesting and kind of gnarly bug. And there was something going on with a complex database resilience. They were able to open an issue, assign it to the coding agent, and within minutes, the coding agent had a 400-line fix that was approved. It didn't need any revisions. So you're still in control of the code, but it's great to be able to assign those tasks to something else while you work on the thing that really matters. So I think if our developers are finding value on this, I hope you as developers or your developers and your companies will as well. So we have security first. That's an important part of the GitHub Copilot coding agent, because we're bring you AI agents into your software development lifecycle, not just fast and efficiently, but also securely. And there are multiple things that are at play here to make sure that that happens. Copilot uses minimal permissions, so they only have read access to your repositories. There is a layer of network isolation. Because it runs on GitHub Actions, you leverage the protections of GitHub Actions. Those workflows require explicit approvals before they can run. And then there's also degrees of separations between reviews, right? Like if you create the issue, you assign the agent, you can't be the person that approves the issue. So it does maintain that integration that you already have with your enterprise setup. So it's ready for you to be used if you are our customer, and if not, I hope that you give it a try today. But leveraging that GitHub Actions infrastructure is going to help it be reliable, scalable, and hopefully fun, right? So you can focus on other things. And one of my favorite things that the GitHub Copilot coding agent can do is bring external context in, and I'm going to show you that in a moment, because we support the model context protocol. So you can bring the servers that your team uses, be it Notion, Terraform, Puppeteer, Playwright, and still have complete control of their code, have the confidence that it's secure, and then utilize all the resources that the agent actually needs in order to get the job done. So It's super, super interesting stuff. You can use it to pay down technical debt. I think we all have a laundry list of issues that we'll deal with later, and later never happens. To remove old code or tidy up old code, rather do the refactoring. Maybe you're moving stacks. Maybe you're migrating to a new, like Tracy was sharing earlier. All those things are very within the capabilities of the GitHub Copilot coding agent. So it's going to help you get ahead on that work that may be otherwise forgotten. And then I wanted to show you quickly on the screen, this is that very specific bug that the platform billing team was dealing with. And you can see how basically it was assigned, it was reviewed, it was merged, and now they're not thinking about it anymore. They long forgotten. I want to quickly show you this in action. If I can get into my screen here. This is a quick application that we have set up. It's a Next.js application. It has thousands of lines of code like any other application. And like many applications, it had multiple issues that are open, pending review, right? I'm going to assign this test coverage issue to Copilot and kick it off. So while it's doing this thing, and hopefully it does this thing, I want to show you what it looks like once it's completed the actual workflow, right? This is another issue that I had open in this very same application, and it was to add a feature that would allow users to post their own travel guide reviews. So if they went to Berlin, where I'm at now, they're able to give it a rating and just leave their share experience. And so I gave it some details when I opened the issue, but you can see the issue itself is pretty plain. I'm just saying, I want you to implement this review service, and I'm going to reference an internal guide because I'm not a designer. And that guide contains everything from accessibility to best design practices that are applicable to my organization. So I tell it, go look here for this. And then I'm giving it some, just guardrails. I want you to avoid duplicating requirements and be sure to follow coding standards, etc. And you can see that the Copilot coding agent picks it up immediately. And this is what it looks like once it's in draft mode, which is where it's at right now. It gives you sort of an executive summary of everything that is done, but it goes into pretty big details. My favorite thing now that we have the support of the GitHub MCP is now integrated with Playwright, so you can actually run the application and it's going to screenshot what those previews are going to look like. So you can see our brand new writer review for Detroit. And not only from the UI standpoint, but just being able to quickly parse through the PR and see how much time it's going to take you to review it, or if it's good to go to be merged. It's incredible. It's a valuable asset. And then it does give you a bit of impact reporting, which I think is super important, especially when you're implementing larger features, because it's going to actually tell you exactly how that might impact load your applications, your website. Very, very exciting stuff. This draft PR was created in a span of 10 minutes, which is pretty standard, but it can run, again, because it runs in GitHub and the cloud at GitHub, it can run for tens of minutes at the time. So when we take a look at what happens underneath all this, this is the actual session log. You can see the reasoning, and it's great because it thinks like an engineer. This is how you would want an engineer or your team to tackle a problem. Chunk it out, review what's there, and then reference what I'm telling you. And you can see that here, how it says, okay, well, you told me to look here, so now I'm bringing up this doc. It has all this guidance. And then once I've looked through all of this, I'm going to actually start generating my task list to accomplish that end goal that you gave me. So super exciting stuff, because in the end, I have a almost ready to go PR. We can go back. Let's take a look and see how it's working on the one that we had assigned. I'm wondering if it picked it up. Let me refresh. Let's see if it did pick it up or not. No, of course, it had to make a liar out of me. On live demo, let's see. I'll assign another one, and we'll give it a quick moment. And I know I'm at time, Danny, but I really wanted to share that with you, the actual going through the preview of it, because now again, we're not just peer programming. We're peer programming. We're no longer just getting a pair programmer to generate some code for us. Its ability to assign issues, create PRs, it feels different, right? But it's still very familiar to all of us. And so if you tried Copilot 2 years ago, a year ago, and you haven't since, I 100% encourage you to give it a go, give it a try, and start assigning issues to the coding agent. You can take a quick scan to that QR code and just get started. And if you have questions, I'm happy to, if we're at time, I'm happy to, please LinkedIn me, DM me, and we can take a look at it later together. Thank you, Danny. That was a super fast and furious.
It was really good, though. I would say that we got quite a few questions, and some questions that I think and I'm having to like pull all my social media tabs at once. But we have quite a few questions that came in a couple of places. One of which that I saw, which wasn't a question, but it was a comment. But I feel like there may be a different answer to this, and I'll go ahead and pull your screen down. It said that Copilot agent looks so cool. Sadly, we use Bitbucket. Is Copilot only something that works with people that are using GitHub?
Yes. So at this time, you do need to have a GitHub Copilot. GitHub to use it. So, but like I said, this is the state of the Copilot coding agent today. The team is hard work at making sure that this is something that everyone can use. So, one thing that we've seen some of our partners do is sort of segment the work to give it a test. So if you're up for it, try it. Maybe your QA team can benefit from GitHub Copilot coding agents. So, test it out, mirror a couple of repos and see how it goes. And then it might be worth taking a look and seeing how about migrating into the GitHub ecosystem. But yes, we're working on it though. We do want to have flexibility for sure.
Yeah. Which was followed up with another question on the impact reporting. How is that being determined?
For the benchmarking, or the numbers that I share are internal, because we did do these studies also in our own our evaluations. But the benchmarking from issues, it's a specific report. I'm going to find it for you, and I will share it before the end. I knew there was a thing that I was missing, and that was it, the link to this beta report. Because it's a different type of benchmarking. It's not the way that models are evaluated. This is more within the context of actual real world issues. So I open an issue. How good is this technology at actually resolving the issue end to end? So I will find it and I will share it before we're done.
Absolutely. Is Copilot available in coding spaces or code spaces? Sorry.
Yes. So when you spin up a code space, you can add the extension and it will kick off. And if you have a preset code space, like in GitHub, we develop GitHub in a code space because it takes literally seconds to load up, which is before where it used to be to set up an environment for a new developer that was going to start working. It would sometimes take days because it's a massive code base. But now it's down to like a science. And you can preset it, obviously, if you're doing syncs or if you're opening in VS Code, even better, because then you're going to have all your things there. All your extensions are going to sync, and Copilot can be one of them. But yes, it will work in your code spaces.
So I have another question. Like, what are you seeing? Because we know there's quite a few enterprise. I know personally some of our clients, but quite a few enterprise level organizations using Copilot as like their main tool. What are you seeing from like some of like the heaviest users? Like what is their flow with this? But what are some of like their go-to moves that you're seeing right now?
Yeah, so honestly, there's been a big focus on anything that has to do with digital transformation for some of the companies that were maybe not up to the latest technologies or have code bases that were sort of rooted in older technologies, older versions of things. And there was always a fear of, well, this is going to take a team of engineers to actually do this, right? And there are some things that you still, yes, you need a consultancy, you need this, that lab to do the work. But then you can also help yourself. For the planification, organization, and structuring of the work, Copilot's been great. I was actually chatting with someone today. They hired a consultancy to do an evaluation of the accessibility because they service a very specific market in the US, and they have to have certain standards. This consultant comes back to them with a CSV file that is 1,000 lines and tells you this is where in your entire application you need to improve accessibility. Perfect job for the Copilot coding agent then. You're going to chunk it out, assign the issues, and give it work. So taking care of a lot of that tech dev has been a big focus, but also allows for experimentation in a way that maybe there's that one thing that you as an engineer in a company always wanted to try is a feature that might not be a priority because it's not maybe incredible business impact, but it's tech dev that's only accumulating. Like you get to be the hero, right? Assign it, just break it down, give it the context that it needs. And then something that would have taken maybe 2 days of your work, you can accomplish in an hour or two. So catching up with tech dev and then trying to modernize your own systems has been something that's been playing in a lot.
Love that. A question came in and I'll even highlight it. What's the average time for Copilot agents to complete the PR review?
Oh, I love this question because it really depends on the complexity, right? Like it can run, because it's running isolated, it can run for tens of minutes. But I would say, and I wish I had picked up, I think I might have not selected it correctly because it does sometimes, it depends on the complexity. Sometimes it might take 10 minutes, it might take an hour. But you're always in control of iteration as well. So once it generates that task list, if you see that maybe the task list has gone into too much detail, or maybe there were things there that are not the ones that you wanted to prioritize, you can iterate, you can comment it, and then you can give it a little bit of focus before it actually completes the entire review. So it really depends on the type of work that you're assigning. But I mean, I would say that, for the majority of the work that we're doing, like if we're structuring it in a way that an issue is actually being able to be completed in one PR, that's also another way that you have to think about how you provide context. Like you wouldn't open a PR for 20 different migrations. An issue for 20 different migrations on one issue, because it would be extremely heavy, right? Even for an engineer, for a human being, and also for an agent. So if you think of a task that can be solved by yourself with one single PR, that's a good task for the coding agent, and that's gonna sort of shorten that runtime too.
Andrea, thank you so much. If you have any links that you want me to share, go ahead, drop it in that chat that you have with me, and I'll put it out in the YouTube chats and all that good stuff. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Y'all, make sure you follow Andrea on social media. Phenomenal human being. You'll see all the links. I'll drop them in the chat as well. And you should see them in the description, but I'll check that in a moment. And from there, let me now bring up Hannes.
Okay.
Hannes, what's going on?
Hey, I guess this time I'm plugged into a power source, so we shouldn't go blurry on you.
There we go. Let's do it.
My name's Hannes. I'm the community manager at RuCode. RuCode is a AI coding agent. We've been working to initially as a pair programming companion, and more recently as getting closer to an autonomous workflow situation. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up my screen and have RuCode do a little work while I discuss orchestration. Okay, I'm going to share my window. And here we go. Okay. I'm going to share, the whole screen instead. Entire screen. There we go. Okay. So what we have here is RuCode is a VS Code agent.
Can we zoom in? It's very difficult to read the text.
How's that?
Perfect.
Boom. There we go. RuCode as an agent. Okay, we are a VS Code agent and a plugin. And what we can do is, where we differ from other products is, instead of just saying, go do this task, go do that task, we have this beautiful feature called orchestration. And it spawns separate tasks to complete the work that we're after without poisoning the context of the parent task. We also do have the ability to compress the context as we're going. But here I'm going to show you, I have a simple prompt that I had ChatGPT write to create a visually appealing, smoothly animated website, etc. Flappy Birds, other games, make it a node. And I'm going to have it work. So one of the reasons that people choose our software isn't just because we have task orchestration, but we have the ability to customize things. We find that the typical coding agent is an out-of-the-box experience that basically you tell it what you tell it, and it either gets it done or it doesn't. With RuCode, you can modify how RuCode connects with your code base and how you interact with RuCode so that you can have it work with the unique behavior required to effectively connect and code and improve your code base. So right here, you can see that, it went by rather quick, but it created a subtask specifically for designing the architecture of a Node.js gaming website. And this process here will go on for some time. It's going to finish this list. We've got 8 points that it automatically came up with. We have integrated to-dos similar to how Claude Code does it, but a little more versatile with our workflow. And so this orchestration really, really, really is a game changer for how you interact with AI coding agents. Typical coding agents very much run a linear single task that needs to use various compression mechanisms in order to keep going. In our case, we do the compression of the context, but we also can break it down into tasks focused on very specific personas. In this case, we have switched to architect, and this happened automatically because we started an orchestrator. You can see right now that we're getting a summary. It's the summary of what has been completed in the architecture step. And now it's going to shoot us back to our initial orchestrator mode and then keep working on that list. And this is something that has made it far easier to carry on extended tasks and just have Roo keep going. I generally run 3 to 4 agents at a time working on Roo code, as Roo code is largely built by Roo code. So I'm going to keep this going here for you guys, and I'm going to show you another situation with a GitHub repository. This is the Roo code repo. I'm going to zoom in here again, and I'm selecting issue fixer orchestrator mode. I have selected an issue, which is an issue that we also wrote with Roo code. And I'm going to feed it into Roo code to work on and hit enter. In this workflow, to switch to different modes in order to interact with the database and figure out what needs to be scoped, and then ask me, the user, for approval to say, hey, is this, I've looked at the code base, I've looked at the issue, here's what I want to do. And this is a step that we've specifically built into this workflow. This is a customized workflow. And when I mentioned earlier that users can customize, that's one of the main reasons people love Roo code, because they can customize their experience. This customizing of the workflow is a super power user move. It isn't something that out of the box you just have, but it is something that out of the box you can do if you read on the documentation, connect with the community, and understand how Roo code interacts with your database or code base. Right here, you can see we have a MCP that was called to pull up this specific issue. Now it's built a to-do list to understand the diagnostic messages system and how they're collected. So it has read the issue and is now fully working on it. It's utilizing our code base indexing to search the code base for instances related to diagnostic messages. As you can see, there's all these different results it's come up with. I pushed it down there. And now I'm going to flip back. Well, this works on our GitHub issue. I'm going to switch back over to, oh, wrong one. There we go. I'm going to switch back over and see how our little gaming website looks. Not so good. So we're going to let it keep doing its thing. It has installed NPM, and I guess it's got to keep. Okay, yep, it's going to keep working on that. Danny, any thoughts, any questions about how this process works? I might be going at it a little scatterbrained.
No, you're fine. I think people are really liking it. There's a lot of Roo positivity in the chat right now, which I think is great. And one person, I believe, from the Roo team responded to a question in regards to whether Roo works with Cursor. And so positive responses there. I'll ask some of the questions that we have right now as this is working through it, right? One comment from Zachary, Roo code looks great, looking great. I'm loving this architectural features, the nice flow diagrams, etc. I'll have to check it out in my spare time. That's awesome. Okay. And then here, they believe the pacing of a GitHub issue is genius. So there we go, right there. Showed them something new. Can some of these AI extensions be installed in Cursor ID? That was the one that they responded to.
Oh, yeah, totally. It works in Cursor. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. Let me scroll up a little bit. I wish Roo would compress the API request sent over the server if they're over a certain amount of tokens. Isn't there some compression that's happening now that's either they have to turn it on if they don't have it on enabled?
Well, by default, when it doesn't compress the initial call, but once you hit your context window, as shown up here, it will do an intelligent compression of that context, taking keeping the last two messages uncompressed and the initial system prompt and user ask uncompressed. So it will compress everything in between, and it actually lets you. Here, I'll show you. We can actually edit the specific prompt used to compress. There's a default, but you can put your own prompt and select a specific model. I use Gemini 2.5 Pro to compress the context, even though I'm using Opus to do the work over here. So this is one of those customizations that we were talking about. Here we go.
Can you show how somebody would do that? I haven't seen that in regards to compression.
Well, it actually just happens. It's
oh,
you look
okay,
at
naturally.
your context. Okay. Yeah, it automatically triggers intelligent condensing once you hit your
100%.
window. Yeah, and then it just continues about your flow. You can also hit this button right here, which I can't hit right now because I'm in the middle of a workflow, so it's grayed out. But yeah, you can if you turn off your auto, and you want it to just go step by step, and you can approve things or get involved. That's no problem in RuCode. We can just uncheck that, and you'll see an experience of what that's like. So it's saying, okay, can I run this command? Yeah, sure, no problem. I can run that command. And it ran the command and went, nope, sorry, something's not working. So this is, it read that, and then it's going to edit the file. So it's still working on our initial, create this Flappy Birds game. Here, let's go look. Okay, so we have our GitHub issue. GitHub, I love GitHub. So it's saying, hey, here's what I found. Would you like to implement it? I can say no, let's modify with some changes, and then blah, blah, blah. No, cancel this task. Yes, I want to go ahead with this implementation. So now it's going to just truck away.
Okay. We got a question that came in here too. Is like, Hannes, what is your top tip for good prompting before kicking off orchestration mode?
I usually just I'm not keen on writing prompts that are overly verbose. I like to just talk to it without even proper spelling most of the time. Proper spelling or punctuation, I just hammer on the keyboard and I misspell something, and I don't even bother. AI sees it, and I just tell orchestration, hey, here's what I want to do. Then I watch it as I go. I have several screens going on, and if I see it going off the rails, I just retry the prompt, see where it went off. But using Opus, it usually asks questions if there's something funky going on. The way Ru works, it asks questions automatically.
Yeah, we had this comment here, talk to the agent as if you were another dev. And I think that's an interesting approach. I like to take it a little bit further, and I like to almost treat it as if it needs way more context than another dev, so that way it executes right on the first time. But I'm fondly known amongst friends as the king of very long prompts. I feel like the more structure it is, the better the response I get the first time around. So I'll go extremely detailed and probably in ways that I shouldn't, but I've always had very favorable results in doing so.
Well, we have this handy little enhance prompt button. And for me, I don't use that, except I did change the prompt so that it corrects spelling and grammar. So if I click that, it'll just clean up my mess. So that way, when I share a task with someone, it doesn't look like I'm a Neanderthal. But by default, you can have that easily increase the quality of your prompt. And this is a totally customizable feature. You can go over to prompts, and under enhance prompt, you can tell it, hey, I want to I want to change that. By default, generate an enhanced prompt version of this prompt, reply only with the enhanced prompt, and it will just do that. It works quite effectively. Okay, it's trying to run this server again. Let's see what we've got going on. Oh, look at that. We've got,
Look at that.
okay, let's zoom in a bit. I'm afraid to click these buttons. I don't know if Opus pulled it off. Coming soon.
Coming soon.
Okay, so that's as far as we've gotten. I'm going to kill the command, and it's going to keep working on what we would get in the app. So it's not it one-shotting each individual thing. It's iteratively taking steps, and it launched it. It worked, no problem. And yeah, it's just going to keep going in this orchestration. Last time I did this, well, for the first time I did this was yesterday on our weekly podcast, and I started at the beginning, and after an hour, it was still finishing up. It was doing great. So it's really easy to get Roo to work on something for an extended period of time, so that you can run multiple agents or just not babysit it.
Yeah, one thing that I actually like doing with it, and it's been pretty good at this in particular. To be honest, putting 5 or 6 different tools so that way I can always test what my knowledge is. One of my favorite things to do now is use it to almost find the vulnerabilities in my code and tell me maybe I've missed something on an input field, or maybe I haven't put the right validation that I need for this, or my regex pattern is broken on XYZ, and maybe just skimming, you wouldn't notice that because you think something is there, not validating how secure that input field may actually be. It's really good at that. It's been one of my favorite things to kind of mess around with in this regard.
We've been creating modes that we have built right into. We put them in our repo for Roo code, not in that everybody can use them. I mean, if you're working on the Roo code repo, you can. And they do all sorts of stuff. They check issues, they scope issues, they can fix issues, they can, write issues. And this is something that, as you mentioned, you like to use it for this specific task. Well, if you're doing that thing over and over, then you can build a mode that is basically a persona combined with a workflow. So instead of a simple persona, which typically a mode would be, by adding those custom instructions, you can really change how Roo will interact with your code base. See here, there's a add specific custom instructions.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna have to start moving on to the next one.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they're not done. Not 5-minute tasks, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But
the chat definitely loves it. I mean, we've got comments coming in from LinkedIn, Twitter. Roo code is looking awesome. Loving the Flappy Bird. Roo code to the rescue. I love it. Also, yes, this convo today is awesome. I think every speaker so far has been doing a phenomenal job. So thank you all for even sharing value back with the community. Giving back to the community is one of my biggest things. And the fact that you're willing to take some time out of your day to do that, hopefully, we leave people a little inspired and excited. So
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hannes, thank you so much. All right. 2 speakers. We're 2 for 2 in knocking it out of the park, y'all. So really loving this conversation so far. I'm going to bring up our next speaker now, YK. Mr. YK.
Hello. How's everything going?
It's going. It is going. For maybe introduce yourself for people that aren't familiar with who you are and what you're about.
Sure. Hey everyone, my name is YK. I think more than 100 people are watching now. That's pretty crazy in a good way. So good to see everyone here virtually. I think most of you are in the US. I go there a lot. I'm based in Vancouver, but currently I'm in Europe, just visiting a conference here. And I'm here to talk about AI dev tools and AI coding agents. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. And I will give one extra call out to this. I see a bunch of y'all have already been doing this. We're pulling in all the results right now. We're about to do I think one of the first giveaways. We've already had 2 speakers, right? So if you're getting good takeaways from this, use the hashtag this.ai. And whether it's Twitter, Blue Sky, or LinkedIn, we're pulling in, aggregating it all together. I want to make sure that you're getting something for it. So thank you so much for hanging out. YK, the floor is yours.
All right. I believe I have 10 minutes here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone? Danny? And I see a couple people.
You can go a little over if you need to, yeah.
Cool. I see a couple people calling out my name. I appreciate it. Jasmine, Chor, and everyone else. 950 people on Twitter. That's super cool. So I'll be speaking about someone's asking me about like lamps and other unrelated questions. We're gonna get into those later, probably, maybe. But I'm here to talk about this product that I've been working on. I've been a team working on. I've been part of a team working on. It's called AMP. It's our new AI coding agent. It's been around, in production for a few months now, and I'm going to explain like what it is, how is it different from other products, but I wanted to kind of put it in a historical perspective first, and then sort of share some of the lessons that I've learned, we've learned over really the past 2 years of working on this general area of AI coding agent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen here. You should be able to see it soon. So here's a little agenda. I was just finishing up this kind of informal slide. Basically, we have 3 topics here. We're going to cover the evolution of AI-driven development, just to put these tools in a historical perspective, and then we're going to cover lessons learned. You should be able to. Is everyone able to see? I guess I need to click. All right, you should be able to see my screen soon once the host puts it on the screen. But again, evolution of AI-driven development, that's the first topic. Lessons learned, that's lessons learned as a tool builder, as well as AI tool users. And we're gonna cover how to adopt it in your team. You see a little bit of QR code at the end. I'm gonna show what that is for in a minute. But that is the agenda. And then I'm going to do a little bit of demo. So I'm hoping to cover all of this in probably 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then do a demo for a few minutes, as long as you want me to do, basically. So let's get right into it. When you look at the evolution and history of AI-driven development, if you look at the prehistoric time in terms of AI, we had what I would consider to be dumb autocomplete. And on my iPhone, I think I still have the same thing. So, it's still useful. But basically, the idea is it's more, deterministic autocomplete, stuff like LSP autocomplete from, your code editor, VS Code, JetBrains, whatever that might be. And that's still useful, right, in certain situations. But to me, that's, sort of like dinosaurs. That's the analogy that I came up with. Still powerful, but not the smartest out there. And then we moved on to AI autocomplete, the original version of Copilot, not the agentic version that Andrea presented. And that was definitely smarter, definitely more useful in different ways. So I would consider it more like mice, like a mouse. I'm not a biologist, so I'm not like super qualified to say this, but I would imagine mice, mice I know are pretty smart. They can, navigate mazes, probably a little bit smarter than dinosaurs, and they're more capable. That's kind of the idea here. And then stage 2 is we moved on to this, much smarter AI, GPT 3.5. That's the original version of ChatGPT. It really shook the world in a way, and it was. I would consider it like a Google and Stack Overflow replacement, where it's able to answer simple questions, but not really complex questions or questions with a lot of context. So I would consider it like monkeys. No offense to ChatGPT. And then we went on to GPT-4. When I started to play around with GPT-4, I was really impressed because it was the first model that was able to take a lot of context, like a large portion of your code base, or maybe a lot of documentation, stuff like that. You can give it, and then you can say, based on this, answer my question. And it was able to do that. It was able to really generate high quality code on its own, with the precise instructions. And this is really, to me, when the world started to shift, in terms of software engineering. And I would consider it prehistoric humans. And then number 4 here is that we went on to more of in-context AI-driven development. So when you look at just the models, there are sort of comparable capabilities. If you look at like GPT-4, GPT-4 Turbo, and then Claude ones, Gemini ones, But the difference with this, like, Cursor, Windsurf, Kodi, stuff like that, is that, it's much easier to give the right context to your AI model, whatever you're using. These things typically have used what's called RAG. It's the idea of, based on the user query, which parts of the code base are the most relevant ones. And that particular algorithm was typically more, deterministic on the deterministic side, not so much AI driven. So it was basically, it was definitely smarter and more advanced than stage 3, but it was sort of like, in a transition period, I would consider it, because it was part AI and part sort of, manual search algorithms and embeddings and stuff like that. And then the current age, in my opinion, is stage 5 here. It's stuff like Claude Code, Gemini CLI. I haven't tried Gemini CLI, but from what I understand, it's the kind of it's representative of this era. And then AMP, our product. So I would consider this more like cyborgs. Definitely smarter than humans, regular humans in this analogy. And they're sort of like handheld AI coding agents. Another way to sort of look at it in Iron Man, there's the difference between maybe like having arms, robotic arms, that might be stage 4. Stage 5 is more like, you have the full suit. It's still a robotic suit. It's not like full robots that you control, on their own. You need to handhold them a little bit, like quite a bit. That's why I'm calling, it handheld AI coding agents. But the difference with this is that it's able to, take actions on your behalf, like run commands, as I'm gonna, demo in a minute, and do a lot of stuff on their own. But you still need to, guide them quite a bit. And then the final one that we don't have yet is more of, independent AI software engineering agents. But we're going to focus on stage 5 here, because that's what we have, and that's what we need to focus on. So related to that, quickly, just some of the lessons we learned over time, both as a user and as a tool maker. The first one is that the common sense, what people consider the common sense in the current era, doesn't necessarily apply in another era. People might have said like 2 years ago, oh, AI generated code is low quality. It's not that useful. That might have been true 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but it's not true anymore. And similarly, you need to be operating based on the current era's principles, both as a tool maker and as a tool user. You must not jump forward before you're ready. This one, I find it kind of funny just for myself, because it's kind of tempting to say we came up with a fully automated AI software engineer. It's able to, take a PR description or, issue description, create a PR on its own. We're not quite there yet. So let's not overpromise, ourselves here. And then as a tool maker, you must keep your code base minimal and simple so that, we can keep going with the trend, with the future, instead of like being stuck in the past. And that's what we've tried hard to do with AMP. And the operating principles are not those of traditional SaaS. I might skip this part because it's not too relevant, but the main idea here is that, when you think about spending SaaS as a business owner or engineering leader, you might think, oh, $30 a month, like $5 a month. But in my opinion, the way you should think about the cost of these systems is very different, because now you're sort of, able to compare the cost of hiring someone and paying for AI. And, I should say that doesn't necessarily like automatically lead to increased unemployment or anything like that. But as an engineering and business leader, you need to sort of make a decision there. Do you cut costs because you can, or do you choose to invest more, both in AI and humans? Again, this is not something I can get into in depth right here, but I think a good question to ask here. So before going into the last section here, I'm just gonna dive into our demo, and then we'll see if we have any questions. So I'm gonna try to spend like 3 minutes on this demo. So the situation I have here is, I'm working on the AMP code base here. Let's just say I'm a software engineer on the team, and I am. So that's a realistic situation. And next week, I'm going to be back from my travel for a week, and I want to get up to speed on this, code base. What should I do? What I would do is something like this. I would say, can you look through the recent commits? Let's say, recent commits from the past 1 week, and summarize what's changed, the most important changes. So that way, AMP is able to decide what it wants to do exactly to answer my question. It decided to, in this particular case, run this, git log command. I think it's getting more detailed information here. So it's a multi-step agent. It is independent to some extent, but you still need to, handhold quite a bit, I would say. And it is based on Claude 4 Sonnet currently. And then it's gathering all this information through these different commands. And it says major features, external APIs, enterprise token rotation, switch to all of these different things. And that way I can kind of get up to speed on what's happening in the team. And I can also say stuff like, can you list the commits by YK? That's me, because I kind of forgot like what I worked on last time. So I'm just pretending, that's the situation. This could totally happen, right? Let's say that I want to kind of get back to what I was working on and, kind of start my work from there. So I can just do that, ask for that information. Again, it's coming up with these commands by itself, which I think is pretty cool. I found that it's really useful for running these git commands, no matter what tool you decide to use, whether it's AMP or something else. So it's saying, last week I worked on this thing, and then I worked on these other things earlier in June. And then I can say, I'm not sure if I have like enough time to do the full demo, but what I can say is I can say, okay, can you like switch to this commit? Like, I could do it manually, but I could also ask, the AI to do it for me. And then I could say, can you describe what's in the commit? I can just do that here. Can you switch to the last commit, the one about fixing cursor positioning? And can you describe what I did there? I'm trying to remember. So while we wait for that, Danny, how are we doing with the time and questions?
You're fine for a couple more minutes.
All right, perfect. Should we finish up this demo or do questions?
You can just finish up real fast, and then I'll ask a couple questions.
Okay, sounds good. So let's just let it run here. And I think while we wait, we might have enough time to cover this part. So just quickly, spending your own time, on weekends, like weekday nights, whatever that might be. I think it's really important, especially in this era, because things change really fast, and it's important to keep up to date. And then you want to think about like how to automate your own workflow by thinking about like what's boring in your workflow. You want to share what you've learned with your team. And in my opinion, it's important to find a way to enjoy the process. And then, you need to learn the capabilities and limitations of the latest and best models and tools, like the stuff I'm showing here. So it said, the problem was this thing. When users clicked to edit a message, the cursor was positioning at the beginning instead of the end. And then I might say, okay, I remember that. And then, wait, what was my solution like? And then I can kind of, get an overview of my solution. I can ask follow-up questions if I want. It's giving me technical details. And then what I would do, just to finish this up really quick, I would say, all right, this sounds good. Let's make a new branch with an appropriate, descriptive name. And then can you change the position that we change within the text box from the end to the middle, just to see, how that works. So this is how I would use these tools, highly interactive, like ask a lot of questions and then have it, make these changes, but make sure you understand. Like using these capable models and tools doesn't mean you can just turn off your brain. I think it's important to understand what's happening at a high level first, and then be ready to ask deeper and deeper questions to understand everything that you need to. All right, so that's pretty much the demo here.
All right. Let me pull this down. All right, there we go. A lot came in. Testing this one more time. Okay. So a lot came in. A lot of comments. I guess in regard to like this one here, stage 6 of the initial analogy, is it safe to assume that's AGI? How far away do you think that is?
Okay. First of all, I'm not the most qualified person to say, is it AGI? Is it not AGI? In my opinion, what we have now, like GPT-4, the latest Claude and Gemini models, they could be considered AGI by someone from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I think we're going to keep moving the goalpost, but it's a hard question.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, that step 6 thing, definitely big. And yeah, huge questions. I would say kind of similar to what I asked GitHub, right? Like, what do you see some of like the heavier power users having come in and use like AMP4 in a way that maybe we're not thinking about?
Right. I think, what I showed is kind of a good example where when an AI agent is capable enough, in my opinion, from like, Sonnet, like for Sonnet, for Opus, models like that, then it becomes a new type of user interface for your entire computer pretty much, but, especially with CLI. So one thing I like to do is, I like to create PRs through this, GitHub CLI. And in theory, I could have done it like it before, right? I could have learned how to use the GitHub CLI exactly, but it was much easier to use the, web UI. But now, AI knows how to use it, so why not leverage it?
Absolutely. All right, YK, I think we're good here. I'm going to pull you down. Thank you so much for doing this and sharing. And if you have any links that you want me to share, please drop it in that private chat, and I'll drop it in the chats for you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Danny.
Right. Before we get to the next segment, we already pulled it in. We already got the results. 3 people right now are going to be getting some Yeti mugs. This is AMP, something like Copilot, but YK is building it. Yeah, YK works for SourceGraph, so SourceGraph owns AMP. So that would probably be your indication of the ones running it, just to clarify that one. Yep. All right. So the 3 names that were selected and sent to me, it is from the 3 various platforms. We have people sharing it on Valuable Takes, Give or Take on Twitter, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. So the 3 posts that I have, drum roll for dramatic effect, I guess. The first person is Isra. So Isra, you'll be contacted via DM from this.labs to kind of square away those details to make sure that you kind of get that. The second person is Luke Floden. Luke Floden, you'll be contacted shortly by the this.labs team. Yes. And then the last person is, oh, I've removed this. Whoops. Hold on. Control Z. Sorry. I just did something. Robert Groves is what I see. So Robert Groves, you'll be contacted in a few moments by the this.labs team to get you your details squared away for the mug. So those are the 3 people. And we have 7 more of those that are going to be given away, Yeti mugs. And 1 person will be selected for the workshop seat that we discussed earlier. So without further ado, I will be bringing up Robocell and Elliot Fouts.
Hello.
Hey, everybody.
This is your show now. I'm going to be in the background.
Yeah. I'm Robocell, the VP of Innovation at this.labs. Joined today by Elliot Fouts, our CTO here at this.labs. And I think what we are hoping to talk about is sort of our progress, our experiences, the things that we've done both internally at this ourselves personally as engineers, as well as the things that we've done with our clients with respect to agentic coding. So, I mean, Elliot, to start out, I think pretty nice setup there by YK, sort of talking about these different stages. I mean, what did you think about that? I feel like what we're going to be talking about is our journey through some of those stages, at least ad hoc, using some of the tooling that was on that list.
Yeah, I feel like that's the journey we're all on right now, is trying to progress through those stages and kind of push it to the next one.
Yeah, and I love that as this idea, right, of you can use it as a way to sort of signpost or check where you are on your personal journey, whether you are, I think we've also seen it as like how long you can allow agents to stay autonomous. Sure. And I think some people here might be still at the order of seconds. You might just be asking questions of ChatGPT or Claude right now, right? But I think some of the things that we want to be talking about is ways that you can do some of the awesome things you've seen in the demos here today, and even start setting up some of the cool demos of maybe the next one of these lunch and learns.
Yeah, I think a lot of the agents have a setting to make a sound when it needs you, and I think like when you go looking for that setting, you know you're getting to a certain level of autonomy.
That's right. Yeah, you've reached that Pavlovian response when you hear the ding, something's coming out of the oven. Okay, so we're going to get started here with some conversation. We've set up a couple questions here for Elliot and I to discuss sort of our progress. That being said, if you have any questions yourself for your journey where you are about using agents, for your coding journey, for the projects that you're on, how to sell it to your team, any of that kind of stuff, please drop it into the chat channels. I'll be monitoring them all, and I'll raise any of the ones that I think would bear well for some good conversation. So please, as you're listening, if you feel so inspired, give us some feedback, give us something that you'd like us to answer. But, Elliot, let's start out with a bit of a hot take, okay? Because I feel like it's the question we get asked a lot. And some of the people are here, Elliot, so be careful. But what is the best coding agent? What is the agent people should be using to do all their coding? And maybe why is that not the question people should be asking?
Well, I think I'm probably not going to bite on the hot take, but I'll give I think what's the most helpful answer is kind of whatever agent you currently have, or whichever agent you're already using, or if you aren't using one at all, I think you've got 3 good choices from the guests today. But I think the point being, like, don't get stuck on the paralysis of which amongst the group is the best. I think there's no end to AI content, and there's new stuff on the block like every week or month. And so if you're using something right now and you don't feel like you've kind of hit the ceiling on it in terms of like the various features it has or abilities it has, keep using it, keep trying to master it. And I think you start to identify edges of tools when you're using them. So I think if you feel like you're starting to do that, and you really understand your tool in and out, you've like read the manual, those kind of things, right? Maybe start looking around because there's definitely evolutions of tools. But yeah, I don't think getting stuck just picking is probably the place you want to be. I think you want to be out exploring. You want to be growing your skill set.
Yeah, I think, that's an interesting point, right? Like, but it is the topic that I hear the most often from people. You speak to people that are exhausted with respect to AI and agents, and it's because they've been using a different tool every week. And it's like, listen, when the framework wars were at their peak, it's not like you coded your whole app in Angular and then the next week you coded the whole thing in React, right, and the next week you coded the whole thing in Vue, right? Like, it's okay to use these tools. I mean, there are differences, key differences, important differences that you will uncover as you use one or reach the limits of them. But I think the most important thing is just to get started. It's just to use a tool. Any of the ones you've seen today and several others that we didn't have here today are all great tools. And keep using the ones that you have and keep working towards understanding the whole framework. You sort of climb up that sophistication, then you'll start to notice the differences between them based on experience. And so rather than ask people what's the best, you'll start to know which tools match what you're looking for, for your project and for your team.
Yeah,
cool.
great.
All right. Well, one of the things that we saw, I think Hannah showed a little bit of this as well, and it's something that we use a lot, is the idea of sub-agents or orchestrators or agents calling agents. I think different tools call it different things. Can you tell us a little bit about why these are so important for the types of autonomous agentic flows that you set up regularly?
Yeah, so I think why these features and other similar ones to them are so important is because they give you access to more context. So, if you're not intimately familiar with context and context windows, you can just think of it as like memory for your agent. And each session with an agent or each interaction with an agent has a maximum limit. It's finite. And so if you want to do more, you generally need more access, more context, more access to it. Hannah showed condensing context a little bit with RuCode. That's helpful. And certainly if you want to continue a single task longer, you need that. But you're going to lose something with that compression, right? Like, it's not, try to be intelligent about it, but there's a loss to it. So if you can avoid that in some way, I think you certainly want to. Referencing RuCode again, the ability to do orchestration with subtasks means that you're not polluting or poisoning kind of your main thread, I think is what Hannes was talking about. So each one of those subtasks is a separate interaction with a separate context. So in a sense, if you're going through a task, and let's say the task has 5 different subtasks in it, and you're using subagents for that, now you have 6 total context windows for that task. You have the outer one, and you have the five tasks from the subagent. So now I've got a lot more memory than I had before, and so that's going to allow the task I'm running to be more detailed. It's going to likely allow it to be more successful in its output in the end, because it had that extra memory to go across and pay closer attention. It didn't just go across and kind of gloss over some things. So if you're wanting to do a task that says, say, you want to go across every file and do something, and it needs to read in every file, that's going to really struggle if it has just one context window to work in, because the context window is going to get full. It's going to be condensing a ton if the agent even has that ability. Not all agents can do that. So the task may just have to end, and you have to start a new one. So the ability to have subtasks really unlocks the ability to do long-running tasks of any form, right? Like for a while, the conversation was, oh, this new model has a larger context window, and I think to an after a certain point, the context windows are kind of large enough, and the tactic is different. Context is not going to be infinite, but our tasks generally need to be able to grow infinitely if we want to be more and more autonomous. So you have to.
That being said, Claude, give us more context window, please.
Yes, would love it, but sure.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I've liked to visualize it for us is that whenever you're using an agent in a stage of a workflow, because that's what you need for autonomous sort of longer running, those stages that YK was saying, like you need to have several stages of a process. Mm-hmm. And the way that you visualize it, at least the way I like to visualize it, is this idea that you run out and you grab you fill up a context window with a lot of important and relevant data. Mm-hmm. Then you do an important process and you spit out a densely, formed sort of nugget of processed context.
Spec or plan, yeah.
Right. And so you don't want some massive context window that has think of it like a messy kitchen counter. You don't want all the slop from all the previous steps everywhere getting in the way of everything, right? You want each subagent to use as much context as it needs and then give you back that kind of distilled nugget of context that you can use in the next step. And that's how you get this ability to chain, and you get this efficiency, and you get a lot of value add at every stage. And so sometimes that idea of filling up a context, then reducing it, filling it up and reducing it is a good mental model for, why this is such a powerful pattern.
If you want to do things in parallel too, right? Like there's some patterns, if you're experimenting with something, or let's say you're doing a UI and you want to see in different variants of it, like make 5 variants of this, you may want to run parallel subagents to do that. Or if you're troubleshooting some bug that is a little bit difficult, and you're kind of turning up the temperature on the models, and you want to run a few subagents to try to come at it from different angles, that might be an efficiency too. So subagents also give you some parallelization.
We have a question from Robert, great name, by the way, who asks a question which is very akin to something we were already going to talk about. He asks, is it worth pairing with AI agents on greenfield projects, meaning there's no established context for it, or it might be a novel approach or technology stack, versus projects that have established repos, so lots of context, lots of history, lots of documentation? If yes, any strategies for use when doing so? So I think I'm going to take from this, and maybe feel free to address it head on if you want. But I think one of the things that we hear a lot is people ask questions like, well, can I even use AI in mine? Because I don't use JavaScript, or I don't use Python. So is it even trained on my code, and these types of things? Like, what are some of the things that maybe are universal, and are there ways to use AI effectively, even autonomous AI, in new projects, brand new projects, or, entire brand new areas of product?
Yeah, so I just take the greenfield one first. It's a blank page, right? But imagine if you were working with somebody else. You wouldn't just hand them a blank page and say, go. They wouldn't know what to do. And the AI wouldn't either. So I think AI highlights how much implicit communication we do every day, because nothing really gets by it. I mean, it'll make assumptions, but often the assumptions aren't what you want, and so it feels like it's producing slop, or it's a miscommunication. But I think really it's a lesson in how thorough are we in explaining what we're seeking. So even if you have a greenfield project, I think you have some intention of what that project's going to become, and that's context that can be curated and used. And so you may have some conversations about what it is you want to build. I think agents are great at having you kind of explore your thoughts, let it make some assumptions, tell it where it's wrong. I find often if I'm just presented with a blank page and have to write something down, I might have like writer's block, right? But if I'm presented with here's a one pager of what I think this should be, I'll have like 1,000 opinions about it immediately. I like that. No, that's not, I don't like that, or I like that. So it can be a great pair in that sense. So creating some documentation around what you want to build, I think is huge. If you have any kind of inspiration around what you're building based on something else, I think AI is great at distilling down other products, others documentation, other code bases if it's open source and the license is appropriate, to add context to what you're doing. The models obviously have a ton of training data, so they're very capable of making a lot of assumptions. But I find that's not always the most useful. Like this idea that the thing I'm working in is like well known in the training set, so I don't have to do anything. It doesn't really turn out to work well for me. I think no matter what I'm doing, I want to try to have some very localized examples, information, context to help get the result I want, regardless of what it is.
Yeah, and I think, we do hear a lot from people. Well, I can't use it. I use a new library that just came out a couple months ago. It doesn't know how to use it. It doesn't know the syntax of it. But one of the people that we love to watch a lot is Jeff Huntley, and he's building, using completely autonomous without writing any lines of code for himself. He's building a compiler for a programming language that he made up, which is kind of a meme. So it's like, if you can build a compiler for a meme language that you're inventing on the spot, I'm pretty sure you can't find a novel enough tech stack that AI can't work with it. But what I liked, Elliot, recently is you had said to me something which I really appreciated, this idea that sometimes when you find that the AI is failing the most, you realize that actually it's that you didn't understand what you were doing and you needed to. So I wondered if you could elaborate on that a little bit, what that learning was for people if they find themselves in a similar situation, just feeling like they cannot get the AI to do what they want it to do.
Yeah, there's like a few different angles to this. Again, I think it's just highlighting how thorough our communication is in a lot of cases. So like, I try to really, I think it's very easy to fall into the pit of like, okay, the agent is not capable. But I feel like that's like just a really defeating mindset that can hold you back a lot, because I think there's so much that we're in control of in terms of the output. Like it's all about the inputs, and we're in complete control of the inputs. I think there's sometimes some debate between agents, but many of the top agents are pretty close together in terms of how well they produce something from a single prompt. So I think it comes down to that communication, figuring out ways to make it more thorough. I kind of agree with Hannes. I don't sit around on prompts for too long. I'll let it go, let it cook, right? But I may reprompt it after I see what it expanded into. And so I think these are throwaway interactions in a sense, right? Like they cost money, but they're rather cheap and they're rather fast to produce. So I don't sit there kind of contemplating what it's going to do. I kind of just let's see what it's going to do, and then revise from there. And I think like at first, a lot of people associate AI and agents with like a human or like a team member. Like it's a common thing, and a lot of times it's accurate, but in some ways, I think it can be really different. Like if I didn't say something well, and or I feel like I said something thoroughly enough, and a team member came back and it was not even close. You might have a hard time thinking that, okay, one little correction in language is going to suddenly get that person to be right aligned with me. I think humans are maybe a little bit better at inferring. At least the humans that are working on teams, right, are a little bit closer together with that kind of language. I feel like with AI, it's very different. few little tweaks, and suddenly it goes from like not even close to not even workable, throw it completely away to, ooh, that's right there or really close to there. It's just a different way of thinking. And I think the other thing is you can ask it to explain itself. So if it didn't do what you wanted, and you're not sure what to do differently, you can correct it with the desired behavior and ask why that wasn't the outcome. And sometimes it'll imply that that's your way of telling it to correct itself. So I think you have to kind of hold its feet to the fire in terms of it. No, I'm asking you to explain, like terms like give me a root cause analysis, stuff like that tend to help. Or if your agent has a mode, like an ask mode or like a plan mode where it can't make changes, that also helps kind of close the walls in to just get it to talk to you. But that can be immensely effective if you're trying to like manage your rules or you're trying to modify your prompt. I think you can ask it for at the end of a session, you know, what would be when I'm doing this next time, what's the prompt I should use? Like you went through and you did your initial prompt, you did a bunch of prompts after that. Asking what's the prompt to do this better next time is immensely helpful. That's something you really can't do with any other tool before this.
Nice. Yeah, I find that it's fun with AI. It's like the more ad hoc your development process is and the less you've ever formalized your thinking, I feel like sometimes the harder of a time you have with AI. And the more that you kind of have established processes, especially around documentation and design, those teams are just having less friction. I'm not gonna say it's easier on the whole, but it's certainly less friction. Because what I've loved to see with AI adoption, if nothing else, is how many software designs it's getting all our engineers to write. I love it. Like they're getting better at writing documentation, better at writing designs, and all these types of things by having to collaborate with the AI. For that, I think it's a great educational source for everybody. Let's maybe do. Let's see. Let's cover this topic briefly, which is rules and modes, right? It depends on the tool that you're in. I was surprised recently on Twitter to see Kent C. Dodds, who's a good friend of ours, mentioned that to this point in his experience with Cursor, he hasn't really had to delve into rules at all yet, and hasn't really felt that sting yet. But I know that you use extensively both rules and modes. So I'm curious, like maybe define what that is for people, at least a mental model of it for the people listening so they can understand even what we're talking about. And then what your suggestions are insofar as how people decide which ones to create, how to create them, manage them, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I think if this is two camps, there's probably many camps, but let's say there's two camps of people who kind of heavy users of these things and people who are light. It may be the case that the people who are light are very heavy with their prompts, because ultimately all of these rules and modes and instructions and things like that all typically get templated up into the prompt that goes to the model, right? And so now there's different kind of potency with where you place things that has an impact, but ultimately it's all going to the model, right? And so if you make a really, really large prompt and it has all the little details and you save your prompts off and you kind of have templated prompts and you do all that, you're probably just doing rules and you don't realize it. You're doing shorthand rules in a sense, right? Because if there's some things that you clarify often, like let's say how you want something to be outputted, or you don't use NPM. I think if you're in a project that doesn't use NPM, every model wants to use NPM. So you're probably often telling it to use PNPM or something else, right? Or like if you're using Bun, I don't think the models ever really default to that. So you may be often clarifying that in prompts, or having to like have a subsequent prompt to clarify it if it does something wrong. Those kind of situations were like my first introduction to rules. So I was, when I find myself, this is like the 10th time I've said this prompt. How do I not do this every time? That sent me looking to, okay, what do I not know? How do you do this? How do you kind of shorthand these things? Because again, I like to be very shorthand in my prompts. And so rules are a great way for that. So you don't have to kind of repeat yourself. If you find yourself saying something over and over, it's a great place for rules. I think similar to modes, in Cursor and other tools, you have kind of some configuration around when rules apply. This is kind of similar if you get into custom modes in some agents. They're instructions and aspects to prompts that don't always apply, but apply in certain situations. A lot of tools have modes such as some basic ones like plan and act, or like plan and agent you might see, or some tools might have like an ask mode or just a question mode. I think Rucode probably is like the current king of modes, right? It comes with 5 out of the box, and it's really easy to create your own after the fact. A lot of these agents really allow you to create your own agent with all this configuration. Is ultimately kind of what you're doing. And I think when I think of custom modes, I almost think of I'm creating new roles or almost new agents in a sense. Like what would be an agent for other departments? I think in software, it's more like a meta agent that you can create your own agents in. So you might create an agent that's really buttoned up on code review, either to use the tools that you use for code review, like whether it's Bitbucket, GitHub, whatever. But if there's certain things that your project or your team really cares about, custom modes and rules are a really good way to try to tailor those situations to focus on the things you really care about.
Awesome. We got another couple questions. We'll do this one real quick. One of the questions from Ariel was, how much knowledge or training would a non-coder need to attempt this concept? And I'll say this concept is the idea of maybe longer periods of autonomous coding. I would say myself, and I'll let you respond what you think, Elliot, that if an engineer set it up for you, I believe the systems will not require a lot of training. In other words, if you're like a product manager, a non-coding product manager, and an engineer has set up an autonomous agentic working flow with you to build prototypes or even to build product, I believe it will not require a lot of knowledge and training, although someone will have to validate the results at the tail end. So how you determine quality will be a thing that is difficult for you to get over without additional assistance from engineers. But as far as playing with this, like, is this a vibe coding type of framework? I think that's going to be, again, difficult unless somebody has set it up for you to use as such. And then in which case it would not require any training. You can absolutely use anything that Elliot's talking about to vibe code. I think he would tell you to some extent that is a little bit of what he's doing. But I think getting it set up for yourself is going to be the thing that requires technical expertise, and it's not going to be easy for you to do by yourself out of the box. I don't know, Elliot, any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when you're trying, like at the current stage of functionality in agents, this turns into rather long prompts, or it's really a prompt that's a combination of prompts, right? So I think you're getting into these kind of like workflow style prompts where you're doing numbered lists or bulleted lists, or you've created a spec file and it's got markdown checkboxes in it, that kind of thing. So it is one very long prompt, but it really is a bunch of smaller prompts appended together that make up some larger set of functionality. Whether that's like a process, it could be something simple, or like, here's the process for doing a code review, or it could be, here are all the tasks within this feature implementation. I think the best way to ramp up to this is to guide it at first. Like, do your specs and things like that, and then have it work through one aspect of that spec intentionally, like your prompt after prompt after prompt. And then when you feel like you can guide it successfully regularly, you somewhat know the prompts already because you've been using them. So then it's just like, well, okay, well, now let me just look at that task I just did and take all the prompts I did and just merge those into one and make it a bulleted list or a numbered list, and let's see how that does. And
Yeah.
it'll probably do pretty well. And then you can modify that from there.
Shameless plug, but Elliot and I will sometimes live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays and Thursdays at twitch.tv/this.labs, and we walk through this process. We build things with this flow. So I would say to tune in and see if you are a non-coder and you're curious if this can work for you, tune in and just sort of see how it works. And if you have questions in that context, bring them there, and we'd be happy to talk about it more. I think it would be really good information for us to know how non-coders interact with this workflow and the issues that they have when using it to strictly vibe code. And I think that could be a very valuable conversation. All right. Let's do one last question. It also happens to be one that was on our list, but it came in from the audience as well. And it's this idea of kind of human in the loop. So Robert asks, with agent-generated code, do you favor a human in the loop approach, e.g. human code review, human test writing, or TDD, or do you just full on let the AI cook? I think the answer here is whether you mean what would I do on a production system that someone's paying me for and I have live users right now, and where do we think development is going in the near term? So I think we would both agree that in the near term, at This.Labs, what we believe, kind of our AI-powered software development model, says that the human in the loop piece comes at the beginnings and the ends. We're the ones that set the product guideline and the product vision. We say what we're building, and we say whether what was built is of quality and is worthy for our users and valuable to our users, right? But everything in the middle, the goal is to create a system whereby quality is produced autonomously by the AI without your intervention to the greatest extent possible. That is the vision. But I don't know, how do you want to answer this, Elliot? Like, if a team is doing this in their production system now, or if on one of your production teams comes to you and says, hey, I want to do what you guys are saying in my project, like, where do you point them at least now? Or does it really depend on the project?
If they want to do this now, where do I point them? Is that the question?
Yeah, like where are you comfortable taking a production system right now on the autonomy journey that you've been on? Again, proof of concepting, vibe coding, that's one thing, but like, is everything that you've done production ready? Like, are you confident enough to stand behind this on a production app? Or do you think that users should maybe be working towards this, but instead have the fallback be set somewhere else?
I don't think there's enough, in today's agents, I don't think there's enough ability to repeat and measure the success over time. So I think it's hard to mature into a place where you're extremely trusting, because I think you need history of data, I think, to work up to that, because otherwise I'm not sure what that decision is based off of. If you do it once or twice and that's your basis, you may be surprised after you do it 500 times after that. But I agree strongly that this is a measure of a combination of the current state of the models, and I think a little bit of the state of agents and their features to be able to run long term, and then a lot about how you prompt. So it's probably mostly comes down to models and how you prompt. I think a medium amount too, probably of how well your code base is set up to welcome AI into it, or to be leveraging AI. But I think it's hard to argue the incentive, right? This isn't a new concept with AI. The human in the loop, the incentive is to decrease it. We've never not been trying to automate things. We've never not been trying to remove ourselves from a process. And this is really no different from that. So I think the incentive is kind of writing on the wall. It's just a question of where's it at? What's the state of your team's ability, the baseline ability of just agents and things like that. But I think the incentive is to get to the maturity with these tools. But that also, again, involves is there telemetry? Is there somewhere where we can record what was the success rate of creating PRs? So in my opinion, it's humans still reviewing PRs right now. But I would be wanting to have some data on how many changes are being made to these PRs, because I'd be wanting to know how long is it adding value right there? When have we reached that point? And so I think things like long-term getting telemetry into the agents, or having some framework where you have telemetry in your process already around comments and sending PRs back and things like that versus accepting them, that kind of stuff.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Like I said, we do stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays at twitch.tv/this.labs. So stop by sometime if you have more questions. We'd love to answer the rest of the ones we couldn't get to today. Sorry if we didn't get to your question. But I'll invite Danny back up here, I suppose, to introduce the next section.
Yeah, we're bringing on one of our favorite people, Simone.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody.
What's going on? And so one interesting thing about this, and I'll let you set it up, but Simone was not necessarily the most advocated enthusiastic individual about AI in the beginning, but there were some things that he kind of learned along the way. And so, Rob, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Simone, you want to introduce yourself briefly for people so that they know who you are?
Nice. So, Simone, from working at Digital Labs, I'm the VP of engineering, VP of delivery, apologies. And I'm going to try not to move, otherwise my camera will shake massively. So I'm holding my hands. So if the camera shakes, I do apologize. And I'm now talking from UK, where it's one of the hottest days in a long time, and having the door closed and the windows closed is going to be in a few interesting minutes.
And for anybody that doesn't know, Simone is Italian, so asking an Italian to speak without moving is actually asking a lot. So he's really not joking. But no, Simone, thanks so much for being a part and being willing to do this. I think, you know, what we wanted to showcase was that you were on a journey, as many of us were and are in this process. I think we have people here listening that are absolutely bought into 100% of the hype. I think we have people here that are 100% opposed to it and just have their hands folded in front of them. And we think all of that is fine. That is just a journey that people are on. So you were willing to share your journey, and we thought that that would be useful for people to listen to. So if people have questions, drop them in. We don't have long, but if there's anything that you'd like me to ask Simone about his journey as you listen to it, please feel free and I'll be monitoring. But Simone, I want to rewind the tape, okay?
Yeah.
To when ChatGPT first hits, right? It makes a huge splash. I mean, I think for people that were in the AI space, the ML space, maybe that was less shocking to them, but for the rest of the world, it was shocking, both with how capable it was, but also how rapidly it was adopted, right? And at that point, people were using it to code as well and look up answers to things and to write code, things of that nature. So I'm kind of curious, like, what was your thought process at the time? Did you use it? Were you excited? What did you think of it at the time?
Yeah, so as part of the role that I currently do, but also for personal interest, I'm the kind of person that likes to eat a little bite of every cake. So when new framework will come out, I will actually try the framework. So I tried all the 150,000 million JavaScript frameworks that were created. And when ChatGPT came out, I was, again, nevertheless trying it a little bit. I went in, I was scared of the Web3, hype and doom. So I thought it was going to be something very similar because, the social were full of it and everyone was saying how amazing they were and productivity, 100x and whatever. So I tried it a little bit. And my first impression was that I was actually disappointed. I liked it to go in and show my mom and show my wife and show my children because it was funny to say, do you know, you can actually, look, you can ask it, what is the last person did? And ask that question, ask this question. Very simple question, it was great. So it was like a hello world moment for a junior developer. But as I tried to start and use it within my my actual work, it wasn't good to do the documents, things really felt AI-ish, and it wasn't good for coding purposes either because, the very, like YK mentioned at the start, the very first one was not the best, right? Gave very strange answers or didn't work. And the worst part was that you had to copy the answer in your IDE, copy the answer in the IDE, and that content switching was unfortunately not the best.
Yeah, so then what do you do? Because I mean, again, you're reading these tweets. If y'all like, these tweets have been existing since the beginning, right? This idea like, oh, we're cooked, software development is over. The same tweets have been being written for 2 years. So you're reading these tweets, you're watching these talks, you're hearing people say this. Your experience doesn't match that. So what did you think at that? Like, how were you thinking? Were you just giving up on this whole thing? Like, did you think you were doing it wrong? Where was your mind at that point?
Yeah, so the truth is when who speaks. So the socials are always full of many people saying many things, but what really matters is who says something. So, for example, if Digital Labs tweets about it, I think that is probably something to listen for. So the same things happen when I started to see people that are really, that I follow and I really feel to be very good developers, starting to share the good insight on AI, a very real insight. Like, oh, I find this interesting. So I had a little break from ChatGPT, and I stopped it. And then what actually brought me back into it was Cursor, Rucode, Clyde. So was the fact that I was able to use it while developing. That's what gave me a chance to try it again. When I went back into it, I was still very skeptical. I didn't go and say, do everything for me. I was using it as very small and steadily, and slowly, I started to get me more interest. But it's been the move from a page to actual my IDE that was the massive change, I would say.
You know what's funny is because like I like to think and try and pinpoint the aha moment. So for me, the aha moment was I remember we actually had an offsite, and you and I and Elliot we each had our own AI cursors going, and it was just this like really kind of cool impromptu hackathon where we said, oh, we wanted to add this one feature to the website. I wonder if we can do it. And somebody would spark it up and start doing it. And then somebody else is cooking on something else. And they say, oh, let me put mine on the screen because I've just tried to do this. And I thought that was the first time for me that I got like super excited. What for you? Was there an aha moment for you when it went from something that you kind of were like whatever about to something that you were actually very excited about?
When I started to actually feel that I was becoming more productive. So that didn't come straight away. It takes some learning, but my real aha moment was when I was able to use it, finish what I was doing in an actual task for work, and finishing off thinking, that would have taken me way longer. And I remember when that happened the first time, actually, I sent a message to Elliot. I say, Elliot, this would have taken me 2 hours. It took 15 minutes. That was my real aha moment because I've actually saved 1 hour and 45 minutes. Now, not every task will let you save that long, but it was in that specific moment that I thought, okay, now I started to do something right. And then, the more you develop into it, the more you start to understand the limitation that agents still have, the limitation that AI still has, and the way they can merge within your processes, because you cannot use AI the same way in every different places. So I know that there was a question before about greenfield project or big project. Every project will have its own use of AI, and you need to adapt and be flexible in it. When you learn that, then yes, it's more than a haha moment. It's a yes.
All right. So where do you think you are now? Like, if the Simone from a couple of years ago was observing the Simone of today, would you be dismissing yourself as just one of those hype people? Like, do you feel like you're really far ahead on the hype cycle? Do you feel like you're pretty measured, or do you feel like you still kind of, well, it's valuable, you're not 100% a believer?
So, very simple way to answer this question. I was doing something a couple of weeks ago, it was the evening, and internet did not work. My internet was off, and usually I can work because there's no problem whatsoever. You can work without internet for most of the project. And I started to do my normal day-to-day, and I went to ask something, and it was like, server unreachable. And I was like, cool. What am I going to do? Shall I finish the task manually, or shall I do it tomorrow? I actually did not do it. Not because I wasn't able to finish it, because I knew that would have been faster to do it the day after. So I did something else I was able to do offline. That tells you where I am in the curve. I'm not the kind of person that's going to go and jump around, but I know that is a must-have for my job. And without it, I'm not going to be as performant as with it. So I think that probably answers the question.
I can't remember if it was you or I was talking to Danny one day, and it was like, I love for the first time in history, the answer to the question, when is the best time or the least expensive time to write code? It used to be yesterday, and the second best time is today. And AI has changed that, right? And now it's the first time, the best time, the cheapest time to write code is tomorrow.
Yes.
Because the AI is getting better so quickly that it's cheaper every day you can put it off, which I think is a fascinating situation to be in.
Correct.
I'm curious to get you to reflect on this. You were a doubter in the past, right? But like now, with the benefit of hindsight, do you think that you were wrong at the time? Or do you think that the AI met your expectations along the way? Or did you think it was a little bit of both? You needed to move a little bit and the AI needed to move a little bit.
Correct. I think it's like marriage, 50-50. It's always for, everyone's fault. So I think at the very, very start, AI wasn't ready. So YK mentioned it is like, the real first ChatGPT, the hallucination that was giving was absolutely, mental. And there was a comment in the chat before about, somebody said, why I ask one task and it does 3 tasks. That's something that is improved massively. So, even the LLM code, the cursor 0.10, when you would ask, say, can you just fix this code? It will change the whole formatting and add TypeScript. Things have evolved since then. And on top of that, I evolved. I think the first thing that I would say is I learned how to use AI. So one of the questions that I think was read is, when you have a big project, the big project will have a lot of context and documentation. People need to realize that not every question you ask AI will bring the whole project in. So unless you tell during that context, say, hey, there's this documentation for you to read and this to see, AI will have absolutely no idea to the rest of the things. And then where rule comes into place and mode comes into place and understanding of how to write context. So I think it was really my fault on the way I was writing context. So if you, let's say this, if you go back to the prompt I wrote last year or 2 years ago, and the prompt I write now for the same task, that will show the difference. I think probably the prompt now will probably give a better results, but also things so much better.
Last question. What advice do you have to people? Again, not necessarily just exclusively on how they implement AI, but how they navigate this process. Because I introduced this as a necessary process. I don't think there's anything wrong with being here on this stream right now and being a doubter or a hater. If you think that this is either all hype, or you think that there's some there, but this will eventually peter out and prove to be much ado about nothing, I think that is a journey we all should be on and support each other through. So what advice do you have for people on their journey to walk that path, like in a way that they aren't unduly influenced by the hype that they hear, but also aren't put off by it, and kind of get a true, honest appraisal of what this could do for them?
Funny that you say, because even before you asked me this question, I wrote it down that I wanted to mention to everybody on the stream. What you saw today is people that have invested a lot of time in AI. So the conversation that we had from the orchestrator, the GitHub, and Elliot, they are conversations that you can have with somebody that's really focused a lot of time and energy in AI. One thing you should know is, number one, your journey is going to be different from other people. In fact, it's even important. So in these labs, we did a survey recently, and it was funny to see how everyone is using things differently. So some people use Cursor, some people use Rucode. Some people still like to use ChatGPT, but do the code themselves. Some people like to do automation. Everyone is going to be different, number one. Number two, you need to look at your own improvement and productivity. Forget about the hype. You don't have to be 10x, 100x, or write an application a day. See what you were used to do yesterday, do it with AI, and see if it's just a little bit better. And that's where improvement that you can work upon. And number three, you need to start small. So the one probably mistake that I did at the very start was I would go on a code and say, finish this task. I wouldn't, like, one of my team members would not be able to finish the task if all I tell them is finish this task. So really start small. So as you're writing a code line, maybe just take a little portion and say, I got this object, can you please look through and just take this out? Or I got this, can you add validation? Very, very small portion. Like in Rucode and Boston Cursor, you can just highlight it and say add to context. So something like that is really, really beneficial for you to start and for you to get that skepticism my way, because you can say, the agent can do it. It's just that probably the way I asked wasn't able. Slowly but steadily, you will be able to do full task, because now I do full task, PR and so on and so forth, but it takes time to reach that level. Start small and you will see the benefits.
Yeah, I'll throw a number 4 too, because I talked about it as being my aha moment. Go out there and find the community. I saw Rich was here. I saw a lot of the Torque people were here, and that's just a great example of how community works. Find other people and make study groups. You'll get excited. You'll get stuck. Someone else will be able to unstick you, and you can unstick them and get each other excited and learn more that way. So bring back study groups, I think. I think it's just a powerful way to work in this environment. So awesome. Well, thanks so much, Simone, for sharing your journey. We really appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
And with that, Danny, you're back.
Well, I'm back because we got 3 more people to give Yeti mugs to.
Oh, there we go.
And so I have the names right here. Give me 1 second. This is the problem, and I should learn to start closing these tabs, man. I had them open earlier. Here we go. So we have a drum roll for dramatic effect. People. We have Devon Visual. They're getting a mug. We have Jasmine. I'm happy she got picked. Jasmine's been tweeting nonstop this whole time. So definitely adding a ton of value. And I think that's definitely worth the mug. So I'm happy that Jasmine got picked. And this last person, named is Sebastian Serrano. I actually know who that is. Sebastian Serrano. Okay, we got 3 people. So what is it? Devon, Jasmine, and Sebastian. Someone from the This.Dot team will be contacting you very shortly, or probably right after the stream, to get your details to ship you guys a Yeti mug. So that means after this, at the end of this day, we have 4 more mugs and we have 1 workshop seat. Now, even if you've won a mug, that does not pull you out of the running for the workshop seat. So everyone is still eligible for that one. If you aren't familiar with how to get one of these, maybe you joined the stream late or something along those lines. We've had a lot of speakers. We've had a lot of takeaways. We've had 3 amazing individuals from different companies share value with different tools. We've had people share value from firsthand experience. Share some of the takeaways that you had with the hashtag this.ai, and someone from the team will be picking you at random to make sure that you go home with something, or well, you're probably already at home, but get something in the mail within the next few days to thank you for hanging out with us and sharing something with the community. All right. With that being said, I clicked on something. Whoops. All right, back. With that being said, I will be bringing up our next set of speakers, Rob, Brandon, and our favorite, Mr. Elliot Fouts, is coming back to join us for a little bit.
Yeah, y'all are probably tired of hearing me talk at this point, so I'm going to introduce Brandon and Elliot real quickly, and I'm going to let them kind of run with it, but I'll still be here. We've talked a lot about theory, and theory is great, but practice is practice. So Brandon's going to walk through taking the things that some of the things that you heard in the demos at the beginning, some of the things that you heard in the conversations in the back half here, and show you how we've applied them on actual real projects. So with that, I will give it to you, Brandon, and show people what you got.
Yeah, definitely. So let me pull up my perfect. Here we go. All right. Yeah, guys, I mean, thanks for having me on, and it's been fun following along with all of the excellent talks. I'm really looking forward to showcasing some like practical utilization of AI that I've been doing in my day-to-day work. So do we have the slides up here? Do I need to activate anything for that, or are we good? There we go. Nice. So I'm going to talk about, I'm going to have a little talk about, again, building with AI and a task that we had to go through over here at This.Labs to modernize a legacy application we were dealing with. Tracy hinted at this earlier. So we had a product on our hands that originally had a massive estimate attached to it, 3 years worth of work. And we utilized multiple different agentic powered AI coding tools to really speed this process up along. And I'm going to kind of like walk everyone through here, the process that I executed to get this done. So maybe you can execute a similar process. The majority of what I'm going to be talking about is mostly going to be refactoring an API. This is a legacy API system that was implemented in .NET. It has a SQL Server backed database. And I want you to imagine for a second, everyone in the chat here, just imagine you're a new engineer that's been hired at company XYZ, and you've been given a task, and that's to rewrite some legacy .NET backend into a modern Next.js stack so that it can be modified further in the future or maintained. The caveats here is that the backend already connects to existing systems in production right now. These are mobile applications that cannot be updated. The majority of what the backend provides is going to be a user. There is an admin panel, but a majority of what it provides is some REST API endpoints. There's absolutely zero documentation, and there are no original team members around whatsoever that built this system originally. So for an engineer like me, this is a bit of a nightmare scenario. These are the kind of projects I stay as far away from as possible, and I really don't want to touch. And that kind of goes for the business side as well, because when you hand someone like a 3-year-long estimate, the reaction is usually, yeah, we're not going to fund that. And so the legacy system lives on, and the entropy builds and builds and builds, and the technical debt mounts and mounts and mounts until you never modify anything. So, this project was suffering from outdated patterns. It had been built well over 10 years ago, obscure dependencies that we didn't really know much about, and overall just poor modularization. It was implemented in a major rush and has kind of been serving a purpose ever since then. So in the past, the way that we would go about doing this is we would require a whole team of people with varying skill sets, architecting skill sets, documentation writing skill sets, technical review skill sets, engineering skill sets. Well, how do we tackle this now? And I think y'all can kind of guess what the answer is going to be here. We utilized a couple different AI coding agents. I'm going to be talking a lot about Roo Code here because that's like my personal favorite agent. But there are a lot coming out on the market. You know, we heard some about AMP. I'm loving the new stuff that's coming out from Copilot. Claude Code obviously is like a popular one amongst a few engineers over here at this dot. But a lot of what I'm going to be focusing on is how I utilized Roo to get this job done. So the first thing that I did is initialized a brand new project. And then I started bringing in any resource that I had access to as context that I'm going to use to refactor the system. So that means the legacy mobile application that was written in React Native, and there's a little bit of Kotlin code in there, a little bit of custom Swift code is in there. And then I also brought in the original ASP.NET code base. So, you know, I didn't like copy these whole repos and drop them in. I just symlinked them in. But essentially, that's kind of what I did. I just wanted to amalgamate everything inside of one directory and not having to be dealing with multiple VS Code windows open up all over the place. I wanted to be able to just prompt the agent to say, refer to this, refer to that. So I can just minimize the amount of transitional time that you would spend like copy and pasting content from like one agent over to another, so on and so forth. I wanted it all right there at my fingertips. So initially started there. And step one in this whole process really was to generate documentation. This is like nothing new. I mean, this is step one in refactoring kind of like any legacy system. You would sit down and document the endpoints, but this is the step that's like skipped the most, in my opinion, from what I see. We have, you know, a lot of just eye rolling and understanding that sort of needs to happen as you're reading through these systems. And, you know, we could have started by looking at the server, but we decided first to look at the client. So what we did is I gave Roo a prompt and I utilized a custom mode that I created called Documenter that has very explicit instructions to only generate documentations. It has very explicit directions on how I like those documentation formatted. You know, HTTP method, endpoint, attributes, descriptive, response, example calls, things of that nature, maybe even example curl requests. But you know, by utilizing that, by executing that step, we kind of spat out from there what was our client API document. So the goal of this was really to say, hey, there may be 20 endpoints inside this .NET application, but what I know is it only services, in my case, one client. And so I only need the endpoints that client is going to utilize. Now, there's further elaboration that we could do on top of this, and we did utilize, which is like looking at access logs. Maybe there are clients out there connecting to the backend that you don't know about. So we then take our client API docs and we further refine that with AI by giving it a prompt saying, review, you know, generate for me, or look inside of access.log, generate a file called missingendpoints.markdown. And then another prompt beyond that saying, I want you to review the contents of missing client API endpoints in the client API docs and essentially do like remediation between the two. Like, let me know what it is that I'm missing from this like client API documentation standpoint. Because what I want to do, again, is I want to document how the consumers of the API are actually utilizing it in the real world. Because I can't trust this legacy code. There's like dead code in there, half-baked, half-implemented API endpoints, and no reason why that may be the case because I have no access to any information in the past. No docs, no X-team members, no X-team lead or anything like that. So again, kind of like, I mean, this is sort of like worst-case scenario for someone like me. But through this process, I further refined and refined the client API documentation until I was very happy with it. And then we start feeding that in to the agent along with context from the old system. So again, like there kind of in the upper left-hand corner is like the old backend, as I kind of like to demonstrate. You know, I originally symlinked that in Now I can refer back to it and I can say things like, I want you to ingest the contents of client API docs and cross-reference that against API implementation within the .NET backend application that's located at, and I just pointed at the directory. You know, you go find where the API endpoints are defined. You know, I don't even want to like sift through this .NET code. Please do it for me. And through that, I got now another bit of documentation, which is going to be our server API documented endpoints. And then there's more verification that kind of goes into play. You know, this is a process that usually would take multiple weeks. And all of this really kind of passed by in about 1 week, because each day I'm kind of moving on to the next step. Client docs, server docs, refine that documentation, and so on and so forth. So now that we have those server API docs and client API docs, we can then go in, we could perform some type of gap analysis. Just ask the agent, what do you think is missing? What's not in here? It may point out something interesting about auth or what have you. So further refinement of the docs using AI was really powerful. And another strategy that, you know, we utilized that we found was quite effective was to tell the agent to generate sort of like a verification system for us. I picked Postman just because it's like language agnostic. It's a very easy tool to use. And I know that agents are quite good at generating JSON documentation that can configure Postman requests for you. So what I say is I'm like, I want you to review the contents of server API docs and the client API docs that I have. And I want you to generate for me a postman.json file that I can use to configure some Postman collection so I can test the API endpoints like as documented. So this postman.json was generated not by looking at any source code at all, but only the docs that the agent had already generated for us. And by doing that, we were able to verify that, yes, the docs were complete. Yes, we can make those API calls. We can actually point Postman at the existing production running API that's out there in the world and get responses back. And I'm seeing like, yes, this is functional. This documentation is working. The endpoints look complete. You know, I'm kind of there as the engineer assisting and guiding things along the way, but it really just only took me and an agent, not an entire massive team of people. So other people on my team could be tasked on building other things like refactoring the user interface, authentication, or what have you. So all of these pieces, the server docs, the client docs, the gap analysis, the postman.js, all of this now becomes context for our documenter mode. And we fire up another task that essentially is direction to create for us what it is that we've been going after all along, which is the API documentation, 100% complete, end to end, how to auth, every single endpoint that the clients are going to use, all the attributes that could be there or may be there, or what they could or could not be, all of that just gathered together inside of one markdown document. And from this point, we sort of started the work. Now, before we really started the work, we had to develop our functional requirements. And for doing this, I utilized another custom mode that I like to use a lot in Rude that I've built myself called Project Manager Mode. And I told the Project Manager Mode, hey, create for me a PRD, read in this API documentation, and then I want you to spit out one big markdown file that's essentially going to be our product requirement docs. This is all the things that the API needs to do, all the requirements it needs to fulfill in order to kind of like one-to-one match the legacy system, including the bugs of that legacy system that are features now that you may not even know about. And those problems can be pretty hard to run down, I'll just say. The project manager mode, just to touch a little bit on that, this is a tactic that I think is very, very, very effective whenever you're using custom agents. These custom modes allow you to give specific instructions to the agent or the LLM that you're utilizing about how you want it to respond. So one of the first things you do is you give it a definition, which is usually very open-ended. You were a project manager, This is very important because LLMs are trained on a massive amount of information. So telling the LLM or the agent how to behave or what you're going to act like, what your role is, kind of like slims down that knowledge. So it only knows to like refer and act and behave in this very specific way. On top of all that this is a highly summarized breakdown of what my custom instructions were to project manager mode. I mean, what I did essentially is I said, I want you to think creatively and figure out details for features. And here's an example of how I would want you to do that for user login. And the way I like to see this stuff break down is it's like, as a user, I can log in so we're following traditional, well-established project management, acceptance criteria, definition, like discipline. I listed out very explicitly exactly how I like my acceptance criteria to be, because as an engineer, I know how to construct like these cards and these tasks so that I and my team can get work done. So this custom mode was extremely helpful. And by utilizing that, I was eventually able to further refine things and take that PRD big markdown document. And I say, okay, what I want you to do now is I want you to take this big requirements doc and I want you to split it out into tiny documents. So from there, I have now my functional requirements directory that the agent created completely by itself. With a little instruction from me. With every single markdown document, there's essentially like each one of those documents would be like a card in Jira. So, these are like little actionable pieces of engineering effort that can just be executed on right here and now. And, I would say too, as with every step that we did along this process, there was a lot of refinement that came into place. There were things like, look inside the functional requirements directory that I've created. And then I want you to cross-reference that with the legacy code. And I want you to identify for me side effects that happen from calling these API endpoints. Like maybe you call one API endpoint and it fires off an email to someone. Maybe you call another API endpoint and it does something in a database or it makes a user. Usually there's a side effect to calling some kind of API because not all of our endpoints were query only. Some of them were post endpoints that did modify things on the back end and fire off actions. So it did identify that, hey, there's some things about, we had a get media endpoint that would log every single time that it had been called in a separate database table. That was an important realization that I probably would have missed. So there's a quick modification made to that file. And since I'm using Git, like every single time I do one of these steps, I make a Git commit. So I can see clearly the diff, what the agent added in. And just like as an engineer, I get a high degree of confidence that, yes, that's what I would have added in. Yes, I can verify that that should have been there. So, I feel like a lot of this is taking this massive team exercise and turning it into something that you can kind of do on your own and make it a more realistic, approachable thing as opposed to like a 3-year-long task. Very summarized example of the workflow here that I just wanted to showcase to y'all. Again, we kind of start from a large collection of code, logs, all inside of one directory. Maybe you're symlinking to other repos or whatever tactic you want to use, but I highly encourage you to gather it all together in one place. Don't let it sit in all these multiple locations. Don't play this juggling game. Get everything into one location. And then generate documentation that's verified by some kind of like compute system. That in this instance, we use Postman. I really feel strongly that you can't just say, hey, make API docs. You need to verify those things. And a great way to verify them is make the docs, then make tests based on those docs, and then run those tests against the legacy API to make sure that the documentation is correct. And then out of that is our functional requirements. So from there, we start with the actual implementation steps. And this really is where orchestrator mode in Roo code helped us a lot. This is the mode that we were showcasing earlier that you can essentially give instructions to it and it will generate a series of subtasks. And since we already have our functional requirements itemized up, these subtasks become very, very obvious. So I'm telling it now, what I want you to do is I want you to evaluate the contents of the functional requirements directory, which contains a set of acceptance criteria for a web API. And for every single endpoint, I want you to initialize a subtask that's going to create automated tests for these. So this was a very long running task. So orchestrator mode was absolutely critical. A lot of context came into play. And this was really only a fraction of the prompt that I gave it. I wouldn't be able to fit the entire prompt probably on the screen. There's a continued amount of back and forth, but still in about 2 days time, I get a bunch of automated Jest tests that get spit or essentially are inspired out of the functional requirements that is also API generated or AI generated all the way down the pipeline. And these tests, by the way, just in my opinion, are very readable. As an engineer, I'm sort of in really familiar territory now. I can skim through this stuff and go, yes, these tests make sense. I've seen a lot of Jest API tests. Here's one for the search endpoint. every single property that could be spit out of that endpoint or needs to go into it is being tested item by item, it would take me probably like a day to handwrite like all this stuff. And I would probably really only generate like 20% of what the agent did, because the agent also tested the edge cases, the air conditions, all this other stuff. It made tests for just about like everything it could. And now that we have tests, I feel like the rest of the experience becomes extremely familiar to at least an engineer, software engineer myself. You know, being that I've been doing this for about 16 years now, I know exactly what I need to do now that I have my automated tests running. I need to start implementing. And at this point, you pick, I mean, your favorite tool. Again, Rucode, I'm a big fan. AMP is also very excellent, and I've utilized that some recently. But it really kind of becomes this interactive process of, hey, agent, I have tests for this API endpoint located here. Make them all pass. I mean, the prompt becomes extremely, extremely simple at that point. And you could even, I mean, this could absolutely go inside of GitHub Workspaces. You could make issues for all of these and like open a PR to implement, you know, route.ts for every single test file that I have. So, you know, I kind of wanted to like summarize to everyone the process that's being executed, which is like, in my eyes, just the formal software development process. But I'm not doing the thing that I normally do, which is skip the first 4 parts of this flow. Like, you go investigate, you write documentation, you verify it, sure. But in my experience, every engineer is really just rushing to the implementation step. We just want to get started writing code. You know, it's very, very challenging to read code you've never written and has never been updated, and you do not understand it, and it's in a language that's foreign to you, and generate valuable documentation. It's incredibly difficult. So now I've got like this whole flow being implemented out, and every step along the way, especially in the implementation and review process, we have our AI agents performing code review for us, verifying the JavaScript tests are you know, correct as implemented. There's AI, I mean, lots of AI driven review, the typical GitHub action checks that you would expect for code linting, running and passing of the automated tests that exist in the code base now. And then also human inline pull request review too. And something we did start experimenting with at this point, and I can't say that we've like perfected it 100%, is being able to have an engineer actually go into a PR and type a comment, and that like fire off another task for the agent. So it just like listens directly inside the PR and commits in. But based on the work that I'm seeing from GitHub, I think we're pretty close to that. So again, I mean, a little bit of an elaboration here on sort of like this AI driven delivery and review process that we executed along the way. We go from, you know, code editor to commit inside of GitHub. Once something is inside of GitHub, you could use like the GitHub CLI to just open up the pull request and look at and evaluate things. You can get AI to add comments in, but again, like that's more, I would say, on the experimental edge of what it is that I want. I would be really excited to like reach the day where I can just like interface directly with all my agents right in GitHub. And again, like some of the stuff I'm seeing, it's like we're getting very close, but all this work is also supplemented a lot by real engineering review, real humans, you know, evaluating things every step along the way. But it's not this massive team. It's not this huge setup that we had originally, which was this was legitimately a backend that had a lot of known unknowns and even more unknown unknowns. We knew we were going to need a 3-person team for initial planning and architecting, a 2-person engineering team for implementation, a 4-person team of engineers and testers and project managers and client communicators near the tail end of the project. That's why, like, when we say 3 years, we're talking about multiple people working concurrently to get all of this done. So that's how you get to that really big number so quickly, is because there's just so much human effort that needs to be involved to make sure that this legacy crufty system that has bugs that are features now stays exactly the way that it was implemented. issues and all, even weird, unstandard practices that today may not be common, but 10 years ago were commonplace. They have to stay the way they are because the mobile clients that are running out there natively on mobile phones, they can't be easily modified. They're out there. It's done. So doing this one-to-one migration went from essentially a 3-year estimated timeline to a 6-month realistic delivery timeline with just a team of 2 engineers and a few AI agents. And one thing that I kind of like to add into this slide was we did spend north of about, punching up into the $1,000 per developer per month range for AI token spend. We really didn't shy away from using AI as much as possible. We just kind of blew the cap off the budget. We knew that we were going to have to spend a lot of money on LLM tokens and power to get this done. And we just sort of said to ourselves, what happens when we just let it loose? And the results, the bill definitely climbed, but the results are definitely beyond question. We still came in massively under budget, massively under timeline, and we actually managed to take this legacy system and convert it to something that now, if a modification needs to be made or a security hole needs to be plugged, it can be done. We don't have to continue running this old code out there. And I think this is a problem that really kind of like plagues the software development industry at large. There's a lot of legacy code that's out there that needs to be refactored, that people are staying very, very, very far away from because really the manpower just doesn't exist to get it done. And I think the emergence of these AI agents and coding tools is kind of like exposing the new possibility of, yes, we can migrate these systems, and no, we don't need to spend $1 million to do it. We can get it done now. And as an engineer, I think that's a good thing. I don't like supporting very old legacy systems that I don't understand. So with all that being said, y'all, thank you so much. Brandon Mathis talking about migrating legacy systems, engineering lead here at This.Labs. And yeah, it's I hope someone got I hope y'all learned. I hope y'all got something for this. It was fun.
Honestly, I've been seeing the tweets come in. I've been seeing all the Blue Sky stuff come in. I've been getting pings. I've been getting DMs. People think you did a great job, Brandon. So
thanks, man. Yeah.
Kudos to you, sir. Look, the comments already rolling in. Kudos, man. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Brendan, you don't got to go home because you're already there, but you got to get off the stage. All right, y'all. Number one, this went way better than I thought. Can I just be real with y'all for a second? This went way better than I thought. Y'all were an amazing chat. The fact that y'all have been here over 2 hours, incredible. Tell your bosses that you were learning on the clock and that they should be very happy with what you did. Thank you. I see all this. We have Root Code chilling out. Not only did they chill, they were here the whole time. Wow. Thank y'all. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the support. To be honest, this is something that we do pretty often with especially companies like us, like our clients, and they'll bring us in for things like that. But funny. Does Roo have hooks where it updates files for you like the changelog? Root Code is in the chat, so hopefully they'll answer that for you. Yeah, mini tech conference. That's exactly how it felt to me, to be honest with you. It felt exactly like that. It felt like it was a mini tech conference. There's a lot of value, a lot of speakers. If you know me at all, you always know I'm very big on value for time. And so if any of y'all work at a company and y'all need some support or help in that regards, would love to be there for you. If you want us to come in there and educate your team on this, that's exactly what we do anyway. The other thing that I would say here is, if I'm being completely honest with you, is we do a lot of these workshops. And so we're about to give away one of the workshop seats right now. I've got the list in my Slack DM. So hold on, let me open up Slack and let me pull this together. We've got 4 mugs to give away, and we have 1 workshop seat. Now, to respecify this, if you won a mug, that does not rule you out to win a workshop seat. Okay. I'm definitely in the office. That's perfect. I mean, just tell them, hey, I can teach the whole team everything now. I learned everything about everything because I went to a This.Labs event. That's all you needed to do. So the 4 people, if I mispronounce any names, I apologize. Definitely not the intention. So let me open these links up. We have 4 winners here for the mugs. Oh, one of them is Caleb Jenkins. I actually know Caleb, so kudos to Caleb. This is Jacoby with the username of Cody Mack. Cody, well, somebody from the This.Labs team will be reaching out to you soon. We have Irfan Bag or Bag. Hopefully, I don't mispronounce that, but somebody from the team will be reaching out to you. And Noriko Yamamoto, somebody from the team will be reaching out to you. So kudos to y'all there. And let me open up this last link. This last link is, this one is for the workshop. Funny enough, this person also won a mug. So you've got double the wins here. And this is Robert Groves. First win came from the Blue Sky tweet, this one, or post, and this one came from your LinkedIn one. So kudos to you, sir, Robert Groves. You won both. So please, can we get some love in the chat for everybody? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Congrats to the winners. Yes, indeed. Congrats to all the winners. I think that's a very big one right there. Very, very well deserved. I definitely saw a lot of great tweets, saw a lot of great comments. Transparently, you know, we had some great people behind the scenes doing all the running around. So kudos to them as well. Kudos to all the speakers. Wow. Kudos to all the speakers that we had. So many speakers in particular. Especially taking the time out of the day. To be honest, we're all the winners for learning something today. You're right, Walter. That is exactly the attitude we should have. Robert is definitely having a great day. Congrats. But to be honest, great day for everybody. I think this is for 2 hours, I think we got a ton of value out of it. Robert and the other 10 winners, or 9 winners rather, because Robert won twice. All the winners, somebody from This.Labs will be reaching out to you soon in your DM. So make sure you check all those notifications in order to get the information that they need relevant to kind of send you that stuff and all that good stuff. And all the speakers are amazing. Thank you, Jasmine. Hey, you've been here the whole time. So thank you too. Thank you, Tessa. Thank you, all the good people that are hanging out. It's been real. It's been fun. And we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody. And let us know if we should do this again. Obviously, I got to convince the bosses, but I'm pretty confident we can if you ask for it. So let us know, and we'll be back again another time. Bye, everybody.